If you ever find out she's with another man, your reaction can either make you lose all your power or make her realize exactly what she lost. Most men make the wrong move in this moment, but I'm going to tell you what to do instead, so you never look weak and always keep your dignity intact. When a man discovers that a woman he cared about is with another man, the natural instinct is to react. The emotions hit hard: anger, betrayal, confusion, even a sudden rush of insecurity. And in that heated moment, many men do the very thing that destroys their power. They lash out, they argue, they demand answers, they beg, or they let their emotions spill uncontrollably. But here's the truth you need to understand: your reaction in that moment determines everything. It's not about what she did, it's about what you do next. Emotional control is the first and most important step. A man who cannot control his emotions cannot control his life. If you allow anger or jealousy to dictate your actions, you hand over your power. You show her and everyone else that she can push you off balance. That is the exact opposite of strength. A masculine man remains composed even in the face of betrayal or disappointment. His calmness becomes his shield, and his silence speaks more loudly than any emotional outburst ever could. Think about it this way: when a storm hits, a tree with weak roots gets torn apart, but a tree with deep roots bends without breaking. Your emotions are the storm. If your roots are strong, if you are grounded in self-respect and discipline, you remain steady no matter how fierce the storm becomes. That is why mastering emotional control is not just about relationships. It is about who you are as a man. If you can't regulate your emotions in moments of pain, then you will struggle to hold your ground in any other area of life, whether it's business, leadership, or personal growth. When you see a woman with another man, your instinct may tell you to confront her or compete with him. But understand this: competition born from insecurity is weakness. You are not in a race for validation. The only person you need to prove anything to is yourself. If you argue or fight, you've already shown that her actions control your state of mind. A man with true emotional control chooses silence, dignity, and composure over drama. That doesn't mean you ignore what happened. It means you refuse to give anyone the satisfaction of watching you lose your balance. Emotional control also sends a powerful message without you having to say a word. When you stay calm, you show her that her decisions don't shake your foundation. You demonstrate that you are bigger than the situation, and whether she admits it or not, she will notice. Women respect men who remain grounded under pressure. They may test you, they may push you, but they are always observing how you handle yourself when things don't go your way. If you pass that test, you separate yourself from the majority of men who collapse under emotional weight. You must also understand that emotions are temporary, but actions are permanent. The anger you feel in the moment will pass, but the words you shout or the desperate actions you take will linger. If you allow emotions to lead, you will regret it later. But if you hold yourself steady, breathe, and walk away with dignity, you will never look back wishing you handled things differently. Emotional control is not about suppressing what you feel, it's about channeling it wisely. You can acknowledge the pain, but you choose not to let it dictate your behavior. In truth, emotional control is a form of leadership, leadership over yourself. And if you cannot lead yourself in the most personal and emotional battles, how can you expect to lead in any other area of life? Every time you face a test like this, it becomes a chance to strengthen your discipline. It's an opportunity to prove to yourself that your emotions serve you. You do not serve them. When you master this, you step into a level of power most men will never experience. When you find yourself in a situation where a woman chooses another man over you, the first wound is often not the loss of her. It's the hit to your self-worth. Your mind immediately starts whispering questions. Am I not good enough? Was he better than me? Did I fail to provide something she wanted? These thoughts can spiral quickly if you let them, pulling you into a place of insecurity. But here is what you must remind yourself: your worth as a man does not decrease because someone failed to recognize it. Her choice does not define your value. Self worth is the foundation of masculine strength. Without it, you will always look for validation outside yourself, through women, through achievements, through approval. But when you anchor your worth internally, you stop needing anyone to confirm it. You understand that whether she stays or leaves, whether she chooses you or someone else, your value remains the same. A woman cannot add to or subtract from what you already are. She can only decide whether she wants to be a part of your world. And if she doesn't, then that's her loss, not yours. The mistake many men make is tying their identity to how a woman treats them. If she gives attention, they feel strong. If she withdraws it, they feel weak. This dependency is dangerous because it hands over control of your confidence to someone else. A man rooted in self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on external approval. He knows who he is, and he knows what he brings to the table. He doesn't need to beg anyone to see his value because his focus is not on convincing others. It's on living in alignment with his own standards. Think about this. Diamonds don't lower their value just because someone walks away without buying them. The diamond remains the same, whether it is admired or ignored. Your worth is the same. If she chooses another man, that is her perspective, her decision, and her path. It does not suddenly strip away your qualities, your achievements, or your potential. It only reveals what she was willing or not willing to recognize. When you hold this perspective, you stop internalizing rejection as a reflection of your identity. Instead, you see it as a filter that clears the path for someone who can actually value what you are. Reminding yourself of your worth also prevents you from falling into destructive patterns of chasing. When men forget their value, they desperately try to prove themselves. They compete, they beg for attention, they attempt to outshine the other man. But the irony is this: the more you chase validation, the less valuable you appear. Value never chases, it attracts. And attraction comes from certainty. Certainty in yourself, in your mission, in your ability to walk away from anyone who fails to see what you're worth. Another important truth is that a woman cannot give you self-worth, and she cannot take it away. She can only reflect back to you how much of it you already own internally. If you don't recognize your value, you'll keep putting it in the hands of others, hoping they'll validate it. But if you do recognize it, no one's rejection or betrayal can shake it. You remain steady because your foundation is built within. Every time you're tempted to compare yourself to another man, remind yourself that self-worth isn't about comparison at all. It isn't about being better than him. It's about being whole within yourself. Two men can exist side by side, but only one of them carries the kind of self-assurance that cannot be broken. And that man is the one who doesn't seek external proof of his worth. He simply embodies it. This is why, when you remind yourself of your worth, you take back control of the narrative. Instead of asking, "Why wasn't I enough?" you shift the question to, "Why would I want someone who doesn't see what I already am?" That shift changes everything. It frees you from needing acceptance and replaces it with self-respect. And once you move from self-doubt to self-respect, you no longer fear losing anyone. You only fear losing yourself by forgetting your own value. One of the biggest mistakes men make when they find out a woman is with another man is slipping into a competitive mindset. The ego kicks in, and suddenly it becomes a silent battle. How do I prove I'm better than him? How do I show her she made the wrong choice? But the moment you start competing, you've already surrendered your power. True masculine energy does not chase, and it does not compete. It stands alone with certainty. Competition energy is rooted in insecurity. When you feel the need to prove yourself against another man, what you are really saying is that your value depends on how you measure up to him. But here's the truth: no one can compete with you when you fully embody yourself. There is only one you. Your strength, your vision, your discipline, your unique presence, these cannot be replicated. The other man may have different qualities, but difference is not the same as superiority. When you stop comparing and start embracing your individuality, you realize there is no competition to begin with. A man grounded in his self worth doesn't enter battles for attention. He knows that love and respect cannot be forced or won through outshining someone else. He understands that a woman's choice is her own, and if she chooses someone else, it doesn't mean he lost. It simply means she wasn't aligned with him. That's not a defeat, it's clarity. The kind of clarity that allows you to move forward with strength instead of wasting energy trying to win her back. This is why having no competition energy is so powerful. It communicates confidence without a word. When you don't flinch, when you don't fight for her validation, when you don't lower yourself into a tug of war, you send a message: I am not replaceable, and I don't need to compete for a place in anyone's life. That kind of certainty is magnetic. Ironically, the moment you stop competing, that is often when she starts questioning her decision, because indifference highlights strength in a way chasing never could. Think about the men who desperately try to prove themselves in these situations. They compare looks, money, status, charm, whatever they can think of to edge out the other guy. But this only exposes their insecurity. The other man becomes the center of their thoughts, and the woman becomes the judge of their worth. That dynamic is weak because it takes you out of your masculine frame. A man in his frame is not worried about who else is in the picture. He is focused on himself, his mission, and his path forward. No competition energy is not arrogance. It's not about thinking you're above everyone. It's about knowing you don't need to lower yourself into rivalry because what you bring is already enough for the right person. You don't need to play games. You don't need to prove. You don't need to beg. You simply hold your ground, and those who truly value you will choose to stay. And if they don't, then they were never meant to walk beside you in the first place. This mindset also protects your peace. Competing for a woman's attention drains your energy, your focus, and your self-respect. Every second you spend trying to prove yourself against another man is a second you could have invested in building yourself, your purpose, and your future. The man with no competition energy redirects his focus inward. Instead of asking, "How do I beat him?" he asks, "How do I elevate myself?" That question is the mark of true masculine discipline. Ultimately, competition creates tension, while non-competition creates freedom. A man who does not compete moves through life with calm certainty because he knows that what is meant for him will never require him to fight for it. And that is where his strength lies, not in battling another man for validation, but in walking away with dignity, knowing his value cannot be measured by anyone else's presence. When a woman chooses another man, most men immediately fall into scarcity thinking. They believe she was their only chance, their only option, their only hope at love or connection. This mindset traps them in desperation because they act as if they lost everything when, in reality, they only lost someone who wasn't meant for them. A man rooted in masculine strength knows this truth. Abundance is everywhere. Options are endless. And when one path closes, countless others remain open. Scarcity is dangerous because it makes you cling. It convinces you that if you let go of her, you'll never find someone like her again. But think carefully. How many billions of women exist in this world? Do you really believe she was the one and only? That's an illusion your emotions create in the heat of pain. Abundance is the antidote to that illusion. It shifts your perspective from, I lost everything, to, I've only cleared space for something better. That shift alone frees you from emotional chains. A man who focuses on abundance doesn't sit in despair when one woman walks away. He doesn't beg, chase, or lower his standards. He understands that he is the prize and the world is filled with opportunities waiting for him, whether in relationships, business, or personal growth. His mindset is, if she didn't see my value, someone else will. And not just someone else, many others. Because abundance is not just about women, it's about the richness of life itself. When you believe in abundance, you stop clinging to what left and start opening yourself to what's coming. Think about how scarcity changes your behavior. When you feel like you only have one option, you tolerate disrespect, betrayal, and poor treatment just to hold on. But when you know you have abundance, you refuse to accept anything less than what you deserve. You don't chase someone who doesn't choose you. You don't lower your standards for validation. Instead, you walk away with dignity because you know another door will open. Abundance gives you the courage to let go, while scarcity keeps you trapped. The powerful thing about focusing on abundance is that it changes your energy. People can feel whether you're coming from desperation or certainty. Desperation pushes people away. It reeks of neediness. Certainty grounded in abundance attracts. When you move through the world with the energy of abundance, you radiate calm confidence. You don't cling to outcomes, you don't beg for attention, and you don't panic at loss. That energy makes you magnetic because everyone wants to be around someone who doesn't fear scarcity. Abundance also applies beyond relationships. When you adopt this mindset, you see opportunities everywhere. If one job slips away, you know others exist. If one plan fails, you know another can succeed. This way of thinking builds resilience because you stop seeing rejection or loss as the end. Instead, you see it as redirection. Every closed door leads you toward a better one, and every setback is simply making space for something greater. Men who operate from abundance never chase validation. They don't compete for attention and they don't fear being alone. They know solitude is powerful because even in solitude, abundance exists, in growth, in learning, in opportunities waiting ahead. Women feel this energy immediately. A man who does not cling, who does not fear loss, who does not operate from scarcity, he stands apart. Because most men live in fear of losing, while he lives with the confidence of always having more to gain. The shift to abundance is simple but requires discipline. You must train your mind to replace thoughts of scarcity with thoughts of opportunity. Instead of saying, I'll never find someone like her, you say, there are countless women and the right one will value me. Instead of saying, I've lost everything, you say, I've cleared space for something better. This shift will not only transform how you handle women, it will transform how you handle life. Detachment is one of the strongest traits a man can master, especially when faced with betrayal, rejection, or disappointment. But detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling, and it doesn't mean you become cold or numb. True masculine detachment is about refusing to let your emotions control your behavior or your identity. It's the ability to step back, observe, and respond from a place of strength instead of reacting from weakness. When a woman chooses another man, this principle becomes essential because your ability to detach defines whether you maintain your dignity or lose yourself in chaos. Most men confuse attachment with love. They believe that the more attached they are, the deeper their feelings must be. But attachment often comes from fear: fear of being alone, fear of losing control, fear of not finding anyone else. When that fear drives you, you hold on tightly, even when someone is no longer worthy of your time or loyalty. Masculine detachment cuts through this fear. It says, I can love you, but I do not need you to complete me. I can care for you, but I will never beg for your presence. If you leave, I will let you go with calm certainty. That mindset is unshakable. Detachment also protects your frame. When you're emotionally tangled in someone's choices, you begin to lose your center. You chase, you argue, you compete, you try to force outcomes. But the moment you step back and detach, you reclaim your power. You stop trying to control what's outside of you and focus instead on what's within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your energy. That shift is everything because no man can maintain his masculine frame while being consumed by emotional attachment to someone who has already walked away. A detached man does not fight for validation. He does not beg a woman to choose him. He does not compete with another man for her attention. He understands that love, respect, and loyalty cannot be forced. They must be given freely. And if they are not given, he walks away, not with bitterness, but with composure. His detachment communicates louder than any words could. I value myself too much to stay where I am not valued. That kind of presence is powerful because it shows discipline, restraint, and deep self respect. Masculine detachment also brings clarity. When emotions are high, your vision is clouded. You interpret everything through pain, anger, or jealousy. But when you detach, you see the truth as it is, not as your emotions distort it. You realize she made her choice. You realize you don't need to fight for what isn't meant for you. And you realize that your future is not tied to one person's decision. That perspective allows you to move forward without resentment because you're no longer fixated on trying to change what you cannot control. The discipline of detachment is built in small moments. It's in choosing silence over emotional outbursts. It's in walking away instead of chasing. It's in keeping your focus on your goals when your mind wants to obsess over her. Every time you practice detachment, you train yourself to hold your ground. You teach your emotions that they serve you, not the other way around. And over time, you develop the kind of composure that very few men ever reach. Detachment doesn't mean apathy, it means strength. You can still feel deeply, but you don't let those feelings dictate your worth. You can still care, but you don't let that care weaken your standards. You can still love, but you don't lose yourself in that love. Masculine detachment is balance, the ability to remain open hearted yet unshaken, invested yet never desperate, present yet never dependent. This balance makes you unbreakable because nothing outside of you has the power to control you. Silence is one of the most powerful responses a man can give. When a woman chooses another man or tries to provoke an emotional reaction, most men fail this test. They argue, they demand explanations, they compete, or they desperately try to change her mind. But the man who responds with silence stands apart. He communicates something no words can ever express. I value myself too much to fight for a place where I'm not wanted. And that silence, calm, composed, unbothered, always gets noticed. Why is silence so powerful? Because it's rare. In a world where most men chase, beg, or break down, the man who withdraws into silence becomes unforgettable. She expects noise, anger, pleading, jealousy, but when you give her nothing, you create a void she did not prepare for. That void is heavy because silence forces reflection. While words can be dismissed or argued against, silence lingers in the mind. It makes her wonder what you're thinking, how you feel, and why you didn't react the way she expected. Silence also flips the power dynamic. The moment you argue, you hand her control of your emotions. But when you stay quiet, calm, and detached, you hold the frame. You refuse to let her actions dictate your behavior. You're no longer playing her game, and that unsettles her. Because deep down, women know that a man who cannot be provoked into emotional chaos is a man in full control of himself. And self control is rare and therefore magnetic. Another reason silence is powerful is because it contrasts with noise. She might be surrounded by men competing, chasing, trying to prove themselves, but you, by choosing silence, remove yourself from that crowd. You show her you're different. You're not desperate. You're not needy. You're not clinging. You're simply living in your truth, unaffected by whether she stays or goes. That detachment makes her think twice because she realizes she cannot control you the way she can control others. The beauty of silence is that it grows louder with time. At first, she may dismiss it, thinking you're indifferent. But as days or weeks pass, the silence becomes impossible to ignore. Questions start forming in her mind. Why hasn't he reacted? Why hasn't he reached out? Why isn't he chasing me like others would? Those questions can be more tormenting than any words you could have said, because silence is not just absence, it's presence without noise. It's a reminder of your strength, echoing louder the longer it lasts. For you, silence is not about manipulation, it's about dignity. You're not trying to punish her or play games. You're simply choosing not to waste words where they no longer belong. You're respecting yourself enough to let your absence speak for you. And in doing so, you send the clearest message possible. I am not a man who fights for what doesn't value me. That kind of statement doesn't require an argument. It requires nothing but silence. This practice also teaches you discipline. It's not easy to stay silent when your emotions are screaming for release. It takes strength to resist the urge to text, call, or demand closure. But every time you hold that silence, you prove to yourself that you are in control. You remind yourself that your power lies not in reaction, but in restraint. And with that restraint, you rise above the situation instead of being consumed by it. Ultimately, silence creates space for you and for her. For you, it creates space to heal, to focus on yourself, to redirect your energy toward growth. For her, it creates space to reflect, to feel the absence, to recognize what she lost. And whether she admits it or not, she will notice the silence. Because silence cannot be ignored. It speaks without words, it echoes without sound, and it leaves an imprint far stronger than anything you could have said out loud. At the end of the day, when a woman chooses another man, it is never about proving yourself, begging for answers, or fighting for a place you were never meant to occupy. It is about holding your frame, controlling your emotions, and reminding yourself of your worth. The moment you start competing, chasing, or reacting, you hand away your power. But when you choose silence, detachment, and abundance, you step into a level of strength that very few men ever reach. Every principle we've discussed, emotional control, self-worth, no competition, energy, abundance, masculine detachment, and the power of silence, comes down to one truth. You are the prize. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to shout it. And you do not need to convince anyone of it. The right people will recognize it, and the wrong ones will reveal themselves by walking away. Either way, you remain grounded, unshaken, and focused on your mission. A man who lives by these principles does not fear loss. He understands that nothing truly valuable can ever be taken from him because his greatest asset is himself. And when you reach that point where your confidence, your discipline, and your vision are untouchable, you will realize that no betrayal, no rejection, and no replacement can ever break you, because you are not defined by who chooses you. You are defined by how you choose yourself.